Welcome to True and Scary, where we dive into the unexplained and unearthly. Join Joseph as we explore the realms of aliens, ghosts, and cryptids that will have you questioning reality. Buckle up, it's gonna be a wild ride through the unknown.
Can you believe the government is trying to cover up the truth about UFO sightings in Lubbock and Roswell? Are they hiding something from us? Tune in to this episode of True and Scary Stories from around the world as Joseph uncovers the mystery and exposes the lies. Don't let them keep us in the dark any longer. Unsolved mysteries and UFO sightings have captivated the world for decades. From Kenneth Arnold's original encounter in 1947 to the Lubbock Lights incident in 1951, the fascination with the unknown only grows. Despite government explanations and debunked theories, the allure of extraterrestrial encounters remains strong. The truth may never be fully revealed, but the stories of those who witnessed these events will live on, forever etched in the annals of history.
The origin of today's fascination can be traced back to civilian pilot Kenneth Arnold. While flying his small aircraft near Washington's Mount Rainier on June 24, 1947, Arnold claimed to have seen 9 blue, glowing objects flying fast, at an estimated 1,700 miles per hour, in a V formation. He first believed the objects to be some sort of new military aircraft. This was, after all, just 2 years after World War II and the first year of the Cold War, but the military confirmed there were no tests being conducted near Mount Rainier that day. When Arnold described the craft's motion as similar to a saucer if you skip it across water, the media coined the now ubiquitous phrase flying saucer. Soon, other reports of a group of 9 UFOs cropped up across the region, including sightings by a prospector on Mount Adams and the crew of a commercial flight in Idaho. The government never offered a credible explanation for the sightings. It simply claimed Arnold had seen a mirage or was hallucinating. But UFO mania had set in, and just a few weeks later, the infamous Roswell sighting would perpetuate the obsession. It's the mother of all UFO sightings, but no object was actually observed flying in the Roswell incident. In the summer of 1947, rancher William Mac Brazel discovered mysterious debris in one of his New Mexico pastures, including metallic rods, chunks of plastic and unusual, papery scraps. After Brazel reported the wreckage, soldiers from nearby Roswell Army Air Force Base came to retrieve the materials. News headlines claimed that a flying saucer crashed in Roswell, but military officials said it was only a downed weather balloon. Ever since, conspiracy theorists have been hard at work trying to prove the wreckage was extraterrestrial, with one man, Ray Santilli, going so far as to release a video in 1995 of an alien dissection purported to have taken place after the incident. Santilli would admit in 2006 that it was a staged film, but he maintained that it was based on actual footage. As it turns out, the government was indeed covering something up, but it wasn't aliens. The crashed weather balloon was, in fact, part of a top-secret military endeavor called Project Mogul, which launched high-altitude balloons carrying equipment used to detect Soviet nuclear tests. The Air Force provided plenty of proof in a 231-page report released in 1997 called Case Closed, Final Report on the Roswell Crash. Though the mystery has been thoroughly debunked, interest in the case has only grown, and Roswell's tourism is heavily based around its famous so-called UFO sighting. The town is home to the International UFO Museum and Research Center, a spaceship-shaped McDonald's, and an annual UFO festival, held each summer.
On the evening of August 25, 1951, 3 science professors from Texas Tech were enjoying an evening outdoors in Lubbock when they looked up and saw a semicircle of lights flying above them at a high speed. Over the next few days, dozens of reports flooded in from across town. Texas Tech freshman Carl Hart Jr. even snapped photos of the so-called Lubbock Lights phenomenon, which were published in newspapers across the country and Life magazine. Project Blue Book, which led the Air Force inquiries into UFOs, investigated the events, and its official conclusion was that the lights were birds reflecting the luminescence from Lubbock's new street lamps. Many people who saw the lights, however, refused to accept this explanation, arguing that the lights were flying too fast. The unsolved mystery of the Lubbock Lights UFO sightings. Hundreds of people, including several university scientists, witnessed the flying blue-green lights in August 1951. One person even took photos. August 25, 1951 was a quiet summer night in Lubbock, Texas. That evening, a handful of scientists from Texas Technical College were hanging out in the backyard of geology professor Dr. W.I. Robinson, drinking tea and chatting about micrometeorites. It was quite the brain trust: chemical engineering professor Dr. A.G. Oberg, physics professor Dr. George, and Dr. W.L. Ducker, head of the petroleum engineering department. Which made the story of what they witnessed that night all the more curious. If a group had been handpicked to observe a UFO, we couldn't have picked a more technically qualified group of people, wrote U.S. Air Force Captain Edward J. Ripple later in his definitive 1956 casebook. The report on unidentified flying objects. In the early 1950s, Ripple served as lead investigator for Project Blue Book, the official Air Force investigations into UFO sightings, after working on its precursor effort, Project Grudge. Sightings of the blue-green lights kept growing. Around 9:20 p.m., the University College saw something otherworldly in the expansive Texas sky, a V-shaped formation of 15 to 30 bluish-green lights passing overhead. Stunned, but still using their trained scientific reasoning, they figured the lights would reappear. And they did, about an hour later, in a more haphazard formation. The scientists were all in agreement: they had witnessed something fantastic, but what was it? The professors weren't the only credible witnesses to the mysterious blue-green lights that night. At dusk, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, about 350 miles away from Lubbock, an employee of the Atomic Energy Commission's top-secret Sandia Corporation, a man with a high-level Q security clearance, had been sitting outside with his wife. According to Ripple, they were gazing at the night sky, commenting on how beautiful it was, when both of them were startled at the sight of a huge airplane flying swiftly and silently over their home. On the aft edge of the wings, there were 6 to 8 pairs of soft, glowing, bluish lights. An hour or so after, according to a retired rancher from Lubbock, his wife had seen something terrifying in the night sky. Ripple described it this way: just after dark, his wife had gone outdoors to take some sheets off the clothesline. He was inside the house reading the paper. Suddenly his wife had rushed into the house, as white as the sheets she was carrying. The reason his wife was so upset was that she had seen a large object glide swiftly and silently over the house. She said it looked like an airplane without a body. On the back edge of the wing were pairs of glowing bluish lights. By the time Ripple flew into Lubbock to investigate the sightings in late September, hundreds of residents had seen the lights over a period of 2 weeks. Locals investigate, and even snapped some photos, but not everyone had waited for the government to start looking into the matter. After alerting local papers like the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, the Texas Tech professors started their own informal investigation. In the weeks after their initial August 25 sighting, they and their friends observed the lights 12 more times. They measured the lights' angles, roughly calculated their speed, and noted that they always traveled from north to south. Armed with walkie-talkies, the scientists, sleuths, and their friends formed 2 teams and attempted to measure the UFO's altitude, with little success.
Welcome to True and Scary Stories from Around the World. Joseph, if host for this intriguing podcast about true and scary stories. Now you can subscribe with Joseph and get extra behind-the-scenes fun stuff, videos, and so much more. Join the True and Scary community today for $2 a month, and remember, don't be so scared.
By the time Ripple flew into Lubbock to investigate the sightings in late September, hundreds of residents had seen the lights over a period of 2 weeks. Locals investigate, and even snapped some photos, but not everyone had waited for the government to start looking into the matter. After alerting local papers like the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, the Texas Tech professors started their own informal investigation. In the weeks after their initial August 25 sighting, they and their friends observed the lights 12 more times. They measured the lights' angles, roughly calculated their speed, and noted that they always traveled from north to south. Armed with walkie-talkies, the scientists, sleuths, and their friends formed 2 teams and attempted to measure the UFO's altitude, with little success. As the days went on, more and more Lubbock residents claimed to have seen the lights. And when the professors cross-checked these reports against what they themselves had seen and recorded, many of the facts lined up, Ripple wrote. Of course, few if any had recorded the phenomena with the same level of detail as the professors. But while many observers offered incomplete or poorly expressed recollections, there's little doubt that whatever people were seeing was something real. UFO sightings are usually one-off events, but these blue-green lights were observed multiple times, by hundreds of people. Plus, for many, there was physical proof. Black and white photos taken by a Texas Tech freshman named Carl Hart Jr. on August 31st, the same night an Air Force wife and her daughter claimed to have seen a UFO while driving northwest from Matador, Texas, to Lubbock. Hart was keeping vigil in his bedroom, looking out for the infamous lights. According to Ripple, it was a warm night and his bed was pushed over next to an open window. He was looking out at the clear night sky, and had been in bed about a half hour, when he saw a formation of the lights appear in the north, cross an open patch of sky, and disappear over his house. Knowing that the lights might reappear as they had done in the past, he grabbed his loaded Kodak 35, set the lens and shutter at f3.5 and 1/10 of a second, and went out into the middle of the backyard. Before long, his vigil was rewarded when the lights made a second pass. He got 2 pictures. A third formation went over a few minutes later, and he got 3 more pictures. These hotly debated images, which show a cluster of dim lights in a V formation moving through the night sky, are the only visual representation of what hundreds were now claiming they saw. Was it birds? Or planes? The government's investigator Ghost Coy, as Ripple began his formal investigation, he found that the lights had affected all who saw them, including a hardened old man from La Mesa, who had witnessed them with his wife. He broke off his story of the lights and launched into his background as a native Texan, with range wars, Indians and stagecoaches under his belt. Ripple recalled of their interview session. What he was trying to point out was that despite the range wars, Indians and stagecoaches, he had been scared. His wife had been scared, too. The old La Mesa man had suggested that the lights were actually plover birds, a theory to which Ripple would lend some credence. But just like many people Ripple interviewed, the old man admitted he and his wife had been looking for the lights after reading about them in the paper. This was a common thread tying together many of the witnesses. One point of interest was that very few claimed to have seen the lights before reading the professor's story in the paper, Ripple wrote. But this could get back to the old question, do people look up if they have no reason to do so? So, what exactly did all these people witness? In the report on unidentified flying objects, Ripple, by all accounts an honorable and fair man who oversaw what many describe as the golden age of the government's official UFO investigations, offers a strangely evasive explanation. I thought that the professor's lights might have been some kind of birds reflecting the light from Mercury Vapor Street lights, but I was wrong. They weren't birds, they weren't refracted light, but they weren't spaceships. The lights that the professor saw have been positively identified as a very commonplace and easily explainable natural phenomenon. I can't divulge exactly the way the answer was found because it is an interesting story of how a scientist set up complete instrumentation to track down the lights. Telling the story would lead to his identity and, in exchange for his story, I promised the man complete anonymity. With the most important phase of the Lubbock Lights solved, the sightings by the professors, the other phases become only good UFO reports. And so, the mystery of the Lubbock Lights remains unsolved. The Lubbock Lights incident persists in the memory of many older citizens, and to this day captivates researchers from across the country. Dr. Monty L. Monroe, Southwest Collection Archivist at Texas Tech University, told Texas Highways magazine, mentioned the event, and everyone has an opinion. Some believe the bright, semicircular, so-called string of beads crossed the sky at great speed, high in the stratosphere. Few agree with the streetlight illuminated, migratory duck bellies theory ventured at the time by skeptics or in the Air Force report. According to Monroe, the professors and other witnesses, tired of explaining themselves and what they saw, almost totally ceased giving interviews by the 1970s. In a rare informal interview, more than 40 years after the sightings, Carl Hart Jr. reportedly told author and UFO researcher Kevin D. Randall he still had no idea what he had photographed that pleasant August night many moons ago. But like hundreds of others witnesses in and around Lubbock that strange Texas summer, he saw something he would never forget. B.Y. Hadley Mears. Hadley Mears is a historical journalist based in Los Angeles. Her work has appeared in outlets including Yon Louisiana Weekly, Louisiana Magazine, Curbed LA, LAist, and Atlas Obscura. She is also a historical tour guide in Los Angeles. You can find her recent work and upcoming appearances at hadleymears.com.
Delving into the mysteries of Roswell and Lubbock encounters leaves us questioning everything we think we know. The truth is out there, buried beneath layers of secrecy and deception. Are we truly alone in this vast universe, or are we on the brink of a terrifying revelation? It's a choice between ignorance and enlightenment, and the answers may be more chilling than we ever imagined.